very different people, and I think President Trump has talked about it himself, that there are things that he knows now that he didn't know when he won in 2016. And just as important as winning the election is recognizing that there's got to be a plan in place to, again, put leaders with courage and a backbone and who really are committed to putting our country first into those over 4,000 positions that are filled, that are presidential appointees. It's not enough. Yes, you got to start with the senior cabinet officials, but there's so many positions throughout every one of these agencies and institutions and departments that are political appointees that cannot be people who are like, okay, yep, I want that job because it's good for my resume and I know I want to run for the U.S. Senate or I want to get this job next, looking out for their next media gig or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. The Washington bubble is so incestuous and so self-centered that people, you know, it's constantly looking for how can I use you to help get myself ahead. He has to choose people into these positions who really sincerely are dedicated to putting country first and are willing to take the beating and the attacks and the smears and everything else that comes with it.
Well, Washington needs a lot of change, and they're changing the way people operate for the worse. The vice president used to fly around the world handing out funeral wreaths. I mean, let's be real, and carry a state or carry a people group in an election. Yeah. That all needs to change. You know, we all know that right now we're only one flight of stairs from an even worse president, right?
That's true. We laugh, but as bad as anyone thinks President Biden is, I guarantee you, President Kamala Harris will be far more dangerous. Mm-hmm. Far more dangerous, for a few reasons. And I've said this before. You have some people.
I think it's shut off.
Did I just turn this off?
There you go. There you go.
You guys hear
Okay.
now?
All right, I'll stop touching it. You see this in Kamala Harris. You see this in Hillary Clinton. When you have.
It's not on.
Check.
Is the mic on? Can you guys hear it or no? No?
Mic check. I think if you move it a little bit further, Tulsi, right there.
Move it out?
There
Move
you
it
go.
out? All right.
Better?
All right.
Okay.
Can
There
you
we
hear
go.
it? Just right there.
Okay, I won't touch it anymore. When you have, this not only applies to women, but when you have a person, but in this particular case, when you have women who feel as though they have to prove their strength, and then you put them in a position where they can make decisions about dropping bombs and sending troops to war, this is the kind of dangerous President Kamala Harris would be, that I have no doubt in my mind that she would go and start a new war or send my brothers and sisters in uniform to some far-off land as her way to flex and say, hey, see, look, I am tough. I am strong. But put other people's lives on the line to do it, all for herself. That is the danger. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's it. I really appreciate that, and that actually helps add color to it. When you were giving that answer to Kamala Harris, those of us that were from California that saw a massive percentage of predominantly African-American men being incarcerated for minor drug charges, when she was Attorney General and saying, see, I'm tough on crime.
Exactly.
We saw it was fake. It was a fake position at just an unconscionable human cost. Back to the VP, the vice president position has to change. Right now, I guess she's in charge of trying to find the border someday, right? Specifically,
It's tough for some
it's
people.
tough.
Yeah.
Well, she's admitted it. I will get there at some point. Anybody have Google Maps? So how would you change the position of vice president? Where you were in the legislature.
Yes.
And as they say, every now and then an innocent person is sent to the legislature. And that's a very old political joke, by the way.
Two of you got it.
But you remember.
Oh, yes.
It's, Congress. Who, us? The VP position, where would America see you leading specifically? Where would we see you making an impact in policy? Where would you step up and say, Mr. President, I want this, put me on this?
If given that opportunity, being able to fix our country's foreign policy, and the failure of leadership that we see in the Department of Defense would be the two areas that I feel especially experienced and qualified in being able to help transform.
By the way, just so everybody knows, you're talking to a person here who's a lieutenant colonel for 20 years. You've been in since 2004 serving, right?
2003, yeah.
2000
April was 21 for me.
21 years in the military as a lieutenant colonel, experienced politically. If I'm not mistaken, you were a state representative also at 21 years old.
Yeah.
So you started there early. And then in today's climate, I think the 43% comment that you made, RFK said that also about 5 weeks ago, and I don't know what podcast it was. He was talking about 43%. He's convinced it's kind of going to go through him, meaning there's a bigger independent voter today than ever before. People are kind of sitting there saying, I'm open-minded. Even Stephen A. Smith the other day is making comments about what the left is doing, and then today he had to come up with a different kind of a message because NAACP apparently got upset at him. So he kind of had to backtrack a little bit with the position he took. But at the core, when somebody tells you what they're telling you first, and then they go back, guess what the real belief is? Is this. This was real. Yeah. This one is just somebody called and said, hey, you better backtrack or else. But the first one is really how I feel, right? So, stories came out with RFK, and I know you've commented on this before. You're friendly with RFK.
Yeah.
We've seen lists where you were also being considered as a potential VP for him, right, as RFK. And some people wanted that to see what happened. And obviously, it didn't work out. The story came out. You turned it down. You went to a different direction. And we know who he chose. How is your relationship today with RFK?
It's great. We remain friends. We keep in touch. I respect him greatly. He has been for a long time and continues to be a voice for truth. And I have no question in my mind that how much he loves our country and how much he cares about people.
Can I ask you a strategic question?
You can ask.
Here's a strategic question for you. So, let's say, small circle, President Trump is sitting there saying, eventually we're going to have to go through RFK. And we have to figure that out because it's going to be challenging. The last RFK was an RP, right? And you know who RP was?
Yeah.
Ross Perot, right? And he had 19.5%, 21%, whatever the number was. And in George Bush Sr.'s documentary that was done, it's a great documentary, you got to watch it. The last 2 minutes of the documentary, the guy interviewing him asks a question about Ross Perot. It's the only thing he didn't want to answer. He got upset and walked away. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I
Highly
haven't.
recommend you watch it.
No.
I think it's actually a very good documentary for you to watch to see exactly what happened with them because I think that time's going to come as well. Let's say if you are chosen as a VP or whatever the role may be, let's say you are the VP. Do you think you could help, since you and RFK have a relationship together, to have RFK potentially, not necessarily, the better word would be to team up, because a lot of the values on what he likes, the left cannot stand him. Even the other day, a story came out, I think last week, talking about the Kennedy family. It's all behind Biden, kind of trying to undermine him. The fact that if your own family cannot support you, why would you support an RFK? They're dividing one of the most powerful Democratic last names, possibly the most powerful Democratic last name we've had the last 80 years, right? 100 years with Joseph and what he did. What role would you play if you were on the inside to be able to communicate with RFK?
I think that as this election season moves on, I'm not going to violate any privacy of the conversations that RFK and I have already had about what's going on in the country and how we share many of the same concerns about the direction our country is headed in. If it gets to that point where it appears that RFK's candidacy would help return Joe Biden to the White House, my hope would be that he would recognize that and shift course to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And you think you have enough of a relationship or influence for him to consider that?
We
or
are
you-
good friends, but as you know, he is his own person.
Right.
So, just like every one of us, I have made a choice in my heart about what is at stake in this election, and as you'll see in the book, For Love of Country, this is what's motivating me. I'm going to be on the road for the rest of the year until the election is done. I'm not getting back to. I was home a few weeks ago, and my mom asked when I was coming back, and I said not until November 6th, because if I can have any impact and influence in sounding the alarm bells to those undecideds, to those disenfranchised Democrats, to those independents who may feel in their heart that things aren't right but don't have, the intellectual ammunition or the facts or the resources or those shared experiences to help make that decision for them, I'm going to put everything that I have into this election, because our country is at stake, and I hope and encourage everyone everywhere to do the same.
So, Rob, can you do me a favor and pull up the VP? Because I know it's a tough question for me to ask, and it's unfair for you to answer it because there's conversations that's been had privately, and you don't want to compromise that because later on it's going to come back, so I respect
Well,
that.
I just respect relationships
totally get it,
and,
and I
friendships.
I value that.
Just as you and I have conversations.
And that stays between us as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's not conversations I reveal to anybody. Rob, can you do me a favor and pull up the VP Vegas odds? I just want to put this on people that are watching this and thinking about this on the VP candidate. Just pull up the names if you could so the audience can see it. The one from 2024, not 2023. Okay, no, VP Rob, VP odds, the one you showed earlier.
We showed earlier, Rob.
Yeah, the one you showed earlier. So if you look at Tim Scott, okay, for those of you that are data driven and you like math, let's kind of look through this from the math and data standpoint. A VP, Tim Scott, what demo does he help, right? You can pick and choose what demo he helps. There's a demo that Tim Scott does help, right? He's at the plus 450. Fine. Then you have the Kristi Noem demo. She's South Dakota, right?
Yeah,
You have the South Dakota, maybe somebody could say women, governor, experience, kind of stood her ground. One of the first, and I think the only one that didn't shut down at all. Sometimes people put Florida as he shut down for a week or two or a month. Maybe she never shut it down. So you hear those types of stories. You go to J.D. Vance, get it, formidable. Ben Carson, another demo that it hits, calm, collective, doctor, experience, educated, health, COVID. There's a lot of things that he can speak on. Elise Stefanik really showed up in that one case against a gay, the president of, it's bad for me to say gay because it's the
president's
Claudine Gay.
MIT and
I don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah,
I
her
know-
last name
I
is
know
Gay.
Adam-
Congresswoman from New York.
Right.
yeah.
So when she went after, she seemed very strong. When she went after Penn, I think she went Penn, Harvard, and was it
MIT.
MIT that she went
MIT,
after?
yep.
You just loved the way that she was imposing herself. So you like that. And then Rob, if you can pull it back up, you got Haley, who maybe is one of the most loved people in the world. that,
Sweetheart.
it's just,
Sweetheart.
for some of you guys, my Boeing. Yes, that's right. Good
If
call.
you're-
I appreciate that.
if
Thank
you're a
you. I
lobbyist with
forgot
an
the
SUV.
word. You should see her faces. Some of you guys, what do you mean she's one of the most? But believe it or not, she is loved by the establishment. I know whether you like him. And even Chris Cuomo, I'm talking to Chris, is like, hey, Nikki could make a pretty good VP if he wants to go win the establishment vote. But I think a Nikki Haley VP would backfire because the voters, MAGA people may say, are you anti-establishment or are you establishment? You can't kind of pick it there. But if you go to Tulsi, what do you get? I think there's a lot of things there. And I think if this number is 43% number that we're really dealing with, I think Tulsi has probably the most independent people. I think if Tulsi's the VP, Joe Rogan, bingo. Elon Musk, Twitter Spaces, X's, hello. A lot of independents that are maybe willing to go that way, but they don't want to be not invited to the parties. Now they have an out on how to vote for Trump. We know what the out is? So how could you vote for Trump? I'm not really voting for Trump. Trump has Tulsi. It's why I'm voting. I'm voting for Tulsi. Oh, so you're not really voting for Trump. So I'm not really voting for Trump. I'm really voting, yes. Okay, so the 43% now is on the table. So that's why I think strategically you're very formidable, and they have to consider you as a top 2, top 3. You know where you are on my list. I just think you need to be they need to consider the role you're going to play. And, you know, sometimes you pick a VP that maybe hasn't had the fight yet, and you hit the stage. Tim Scott hasn't had a big fight yet. Elise Stefanik has shown fight, but not on the debate stage. It's more of a questioning stage, right? Ben Carson has had some of it, but Ben Carson, you know, read the book, I think America the Beautiful, when it came out. I had my entire company read the book. But some studies have shown he could be the cure for insomnia. Nice guy, phenomenal guy, but you know, I'm just not saying anything. You respectful, brilliant guy, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a different kind of an environment.
Yeah.
But here, you just got a lot of check. You have gone up against heavyweights, and you've stood ground. So Hillary, boom. Kamala, boom. So it's almost like I'm not going to have to worry about her going up against anybody to debate. She's going to be hold her own. I'm going to go do my own thing. So anyways, I'm not your manager. I'm not your agent. I'm just somebody that really believes in you, and I hope you're going to be somebody that's going to be considered. And that's why I want to make sure the right argument is being made for you. That's all I want to say out of respect to you.
And look around the world. There's never been a more important time to have a balanced ticket that knows what they're doing with defense and foreign policy.
So, okay, so did you see what Avenatti said on Hannity yesterday? Did you guys see what Avenatti said on Hannity yesterday? One person did. What do you think about when you hear the word Michael Avenatti? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the What do you hear? Actually, give me the word. What do you hear? I'm going to say it on 3. Say it on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Scumbag.
All right, fantastic. That's what Vinny said.
Disbarred.
Rob, can you? Some of you guys are about to be bamboozled by this guy here. Rob, play this clip of what he said on Hannity yesterday. Go for it.
Right now to President Trump, and let me be clear, I disagree with President Trump on about 95% of the issues at a minimum. But one thing he and I agree on, and that is that the politicization of these cases, in this case in particular, is gross, it's uncalled for, and it's flat out wrong. This is an effort to deprive millions of Americans of their choice for president. This guy has been indicted now in 4 cases up and down the entire East Coast. Sean, in this country, we don't have serial killers who are prosecuted at the same time in 4 different cases. The timing is wrong, the case is wrong, and he's not receiving due process.
Guys, this is Michael Avenatti calling in from jail.
Yeah,
and I think he's going to be in jail for 15 years.
Yeah.
This is like Suge Knight calling it, except Michael Avenatti is calling it, right?
Well,
hey, what's up, PBD, right?
His cellmate was making the bed in the back. You didn't hear the
You
cellmate?
could hear the background noise.
Yeah,
And that
exactly
wasn't
right.
our mic, by the way. That
It
was
wasn't a microphone. That
right.
was his cellmate cleaning the bed.
It's a man who needs a pardon.
So how have we got? It's a man that needs a pardon.
Yeah.
Exactly. But by the way, when you hear a guy like this coming out saying this, you know, he was Stormy's lawyer, right? And at
Yes.
one point, I think everybody on the left was thinking he should run for office and be the president.
Oh, the
He
left was.
He was
Oh, they
going
loved
to
him.
run.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was
running in
thinking about
all
it.
the
2020
news,
until-
Yeah.
everybody was like, oh, I'd vote for him. They were all on him. On CNN, everybody loved him.
What do you think about what he just said? I mean, again, this is coming from Avenatti.
So you look at those statements. You look at the Avenatti statement. You look at the union leaders' statement. You look at the things that Stephen A. Smith was saying the other day, and then you contrast that with what one of Bobby Kennedy's brothers said when he said Joe Biden is the RFK of our time.
Jeez.
And you look at the kind of stuff that Morning Joe says of, you know, they've never known a greater president and Joe Biden's at the top of his game. It's just like, it's become comical at this point because the truth is staring us all in the face every single day. Even people who hate Donald Trump are saying like, all right, guys, come on. Like this is too much and it's making a mockery of our democracy and it's undermining our democracy. So as I think that's where the silver lining is in all of this craziness. It is becoming undeniable what the Democrats are doing in abusing their power. And if you stand with them, you are on the wrong side of the country.
I actually think Tom was kind of spot on with this. Because is there anybody less likable and credible than Michael Avenatti? Maybe Michael Cohen at this point. But when he said there's a 95% of the things I disagree with Trump on.
Yeah.
There's a very high likelihood he's probably a good strategist. He's probably looking at the likelihood of Trump being the president. He's like, let me say some nice things about Trump real quick. Maybe I'll catch a pardon or two. Michael Avenatti's in jail for 2 decades, I want to say, for doing some shady things out there. So I think we were spot on here.
We can have a fast flashback here to about 40 minutes ago here in the podcast. Michael Avenatti, forget who he is.
Creepy porn lawyer. That's
Correct.
who he is.
Exactly
he's
right.
a creepy porn lawyer.
Are you in
period.
a semi-accident? Are you a porn star?
No, he's a creepy porn lawyer, and I don't trust him. Good that he's in jail. But go ahead, Tom.
That's right.
Sorry.